2020. We have a few things. I know there's a couple cleanup items. We have a continuance requested from, which one? Was it Augustine? Gene Augustine?
Yeah, Gene Augustine. I've been in touch with their attorney as well as the solicitor for the township, and they need to submit, I guess, a revised application.
Okay.
And so they want this continued until the December 1st hearing. And there's no objection from the township on that. So they need to do a couple things, submit a revised application, and then it'll be ready for December.
Right. Make a motion on that? Anybody? Yeah.
Make a motion to move appeal 20-1873 to be continued on December 1st.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay. That's done. All right. Now, what else we got here? Next appeal. The board's not here yet? All right. I guess we'll go to the next one in line.
Well, if you'd like, you can go to the next continuance, Pennsylvania American Water.
Which one's the next one? There's another continuance?
Pennsylvania American Water is also.
Oh, that's being continued? I didn't know that.
Oh,
Huh?
I don't know that I knew that either,
I didn't know that at all.
unless I forgot.
You sure?
Did they say when they wanted that continued to, Jim?
November 2nd.
Oh, just the next meeting.
Yes, they had a scheduling conflict. They wanted.
The second is a Monday and Tuesday, the 3rd is election day. That can't be right.
The meetings are always scheduled on the Monday prior to.
Okay.
Can you unmute?
Okay.
Well, that counts me out because I have school on Monday nights. So let's keep that in mind. That's all right. All right. Well, anybody want to make a motion? We continue to November 2nd.
Caller, can you unmute? *6, please.
Okay, make a motion to move appeal 20-1875 to be continued on November 2nd.
7-4. I think it's 7-4, isn't it?
It's 7-4.
Yes.
7-4, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one here.
Continue to,
November 2nd.
okay. I get a second? Second? Nobody? I'll
I
second.
think he dropped off.
Oh, all right.
We gotta get him back,
Where's he at?
Matt.
Matt, where are you?
Matt's on mute.
Oh,
I'm here. Aye.
second, Matt?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That one's moved to November 2nd. All right, that's 2. Down. What's this last one here? The grief? That one there? This is the drive?
Yeah, that one's going forward, I believe.
Okay. All right. Appeal number 20-1875, Nicholas and Laura Grief. They're asking for a variance. Any things we have to enter in, Adam?
Yeah, let me just pull that up quickly. We have a few exhibits. We have A1 is the application, A2 is the site plans, A3 is the runoff volume control calculations, and there's about 4 sheets that go with that total. And then A4 is the impervious surface breakdown chart. B1, proof of publication. B2, proof of posting. And B3, the notice to the neighbors.
All right. Okay. Are they here? Can we bring them in?
They are here. I'll bring them in.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, Nicholas and Laura?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Welcome. Tell us what you're trying to do.
Oh, no, I have to swear me first.
Oh, you got to swear. That's right. I'm sorry. Swear him in.
Guys solemnly swear testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
So we are applying to get a driveway put in the front of the house. The house doesn't have a driveway right now. Our address faces onto Yardley Road. So as we're trying to get packages delivered, people come to visit, they're unable to find where to park, and they've been parking on our neighbor's driveway or parking out on the street. So we knew that we were already over the pervious amount for a property. And then so we started going through our investigation. We did our calculations on the existing trees to see if that offset the runoff. And according to the math that we came up with, we account for the 182 cubic feet of runoff that the driveway would produce and have an abundance of more of accountable runoff. And so that's why we're coming to the board to see if we can get a variance to get that driveway put in.
So you're at 25, you want to go from 19% to 25%, correct? The impervious surface?
Yes.
And you're saying you have enough water-loving plants and trees to compensate for that? Jim, can you help me here? Mr. Majewski?
Yes, they actually did the calculations, and according to our ordinance, just by virtue of the existing trees and everything that they have on the lot, they can meet all of our requirements for the runoff control. I believe the total amount of impervious they're adding is, I think, 1,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken, roughly.
Jim, I have a question. Jim, I have a question for you here. That strikes me as a little unusual because most properties around here do have trees on them. Is this being considered offset against all the way back to zero, or how would this go in since they're adding impervious surface?
Basically, our stormwater management ordinance, when they did the whole Act 167 plan for the entire Delaware River South watershed, they took into account that many lots would have small increases in impervious surface. That would not necessarily require full-scale stormwater management to be required. So they gave several alternatives in order to meet the stormwater management requirements. One is the most common one that you guys are familiar with, is the seepage bed, where they put the stone trench in to let some of the runoff soak into the ground whenever it rains. Another method is a rain garden. Another method would be to plant trees. And another method is just, if you have all the trees that you're preserving in and around the driveway, that also would meet the requirements.
Well,
Can I interject for 1 second? For the moderator, can we bring Barbara Kirk in? Because I know the township was trying to participate just while we're doing all this. Sorry to interrupt.
no problem. Bring her in.
But Tony, don't let me interrupt you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I see this as a 6% increase. I'm not real comfortable with just having the trees. I know that's a lot. I always worry about trees, not lasting, and then they go and they're not getting replaced, and then we end up with an increase, and there's nothing we can do about it. I kind of like that seepage bed idea. Is that something that would, Jim? Is that something that would have? Can you guess or figure out how large that would be if it was a seepage bed?
Yeah, that'll just take me 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. When I see that, that's a large increase. I just get concerned over how long that'll last. Laura and Mike Nicholas, right?
Yes.
Are you guys, would you consider doing the seepage bed? Does that bother you?
I don't really know what a seepage bed is.
Jim can explain it to you. It's Susie's done his calculations. Or Matt.
Basically, it's a trench that you would dig, most likely right next to your driveway. You take that trench that would normally be maybe 2 feet wide and 2 feet deep, and then line that with fabric so that dirt doesn't get in, and then fill that with clean stone. And then water from the driveway would run off into that and just soak into the ground. It also provides a little bit of a surface so that you have a little overlap on the side of your driveway for cars, that they don't miss your driveway and get on your grass.
Okay, and so with a horseshoe shaped driveway, it would go around the entire perimeter or just sections of it?
Just sections of it.
Okay. And so is there a calculation of like how much seepage bed you need in relationship to the driveway?
Yes, and I'm calculating that right now. Basically, based on your property, it looks like it would be almost the entire length of the driveway that's off the road. So after you go 10 feet off the road and are outside the right of way, you would line that either on the inside or outside, 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep, by the entire length of that driveway, which is about 60 feet.
Is that something you would consider if we were
I'll have to see how, that sounds really expensive. So I'll have to see how much it costs.
Jim, does it have to go right there? Can it go somewhere else?
Go to a low spot where you can collect rain.
Is that it? I mean, I'm not sure the grading.
I mean, that's something that Jim can work out.
Yeah.
You stick it in a low spot so that you're collecting runoff from that driveway.
That will cost some money. Usually it costs maybe a couple of $1,000, $1,000, maybe $2,000. Since they're digging up and putting the driveway in, it might be a little bit less of an incremental cost because they're already out there digging to put in the driveway. But if that's something that you want to find out what the price would be, you could go ahead and explore that a little bit further and then come back again to the zoning hearing board at a later date.
If you would like to ask for a continuance so you can investigate that. It is the better way to do it. I did it in my house. It is nice. And since you're already doing the driveway, that does make sense.
So is it do you see it? Is it
No, it's on the ground.
Yeah.
You can either leave the stone exposed and have it as a nice 2 foot wide perimeter, or you could have a filter fabric over it and grass over the top of that.
okay?
There's different ways you can do it. You'd want areas that you can get the stormwater into that stone bed easily without impacting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we can do that. I think
Yeah.
we can agree. I think that is a good solution.
All right. You want to move ahead tonight with it, or you want to investigate?
Really want this driveway.
So what we're saying, in order for us to be inclined to give you this variance, we would want you to use the seepage bed. Of course, it would have to be according to Jim's calculations. He would check it over, of course. If you would do that, we can present that to the rest of my colleagues and see what they'll think. See what they think.
All right.
That's what we prefer. We don't like to do the trees on such a large increase.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but something small, 1%, we're okay. But
Okay.
Mr. Zamparelli,
yes, Barbara, you
Hi.
participating in this?
I'm here to participate on behalf of the township because there is a safety concern that's being
Okay.
raised.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to ask the property owners a couple of questions because the copy of the site plan I have is fairly smudged. Is your property along the corner of Yardley, Morrisville Road and Arbor Lee Road?
Yes.
And you own that entire, like, almost like triangular sort of shaped property that's showing on the screen?
Yes.
Now, why have you chose this section along Yardley Morrisville Road for the driveway as opposed to off of Arbor Lee where there is less traffic?
Because that's where our front door is.
And also that's our address. So especially now with getting so many Amazon deliveries and other things getting delivered to the house, people aren't able to find our house. They keep driving past the front of our house on Yardley Morrisville Road, and they end up parking in our neighbor's driveway and bringing things over to our house from the neighbor's driveway. We've also had cars parked for deliveries out on Yardley Road.
Okay, the concern now is there's a great deal of traffic along Yardley Morrisville Road and the issue of safety trying to go in or out of your driveway.
Right. So that's why we wanted the horseshoe driveway, so you would never be backing out. You could just pull through, and everyone else on Yardley Road has a driveway, and that's doesn't seem to be a
You have no driveway at all?
We do have a driveway that's in the very, like, we can't even see it in this screenshot. It's at the very, very back, and it goes to our garage. Yeah. So if you go, like, you have to keep going. It's like.
So the driveway you have comes off of Arbor Lee onto your property?
And it comes to the garage.
Okay. Why couldn't you just continue to maintain that driveway and just put some sort of identification sign on the corner
Well, we would
to identify the property as opposed to this driveway?
So we would like access to our front door because we still have that driveway. I have to give people very long directions of how to find my house. They still don't find my house. And our parents are getting older and they have to walk from like Arbor Lee all the way down the driveway, up steps, up and down, I mean, it's inconvenient to have people come just to use your back door. So,
All right, because I'm having a hard time seeing the garage. Oh, I see. So your garage leads you into the rear of your house.
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you're merely asking for the horseshoe-shaped driveway at the front because you don't like using the rear door of the house anymore.
Well,
It's also, like I said, it's because every time we give directions to the house, people aren't able to find where to park. They're kind of driving, they're parking out on the street. Deliveries, they're pulling up onto the lawn or pulling into the neighbor's driveway.
or the delivery trucks just stop
right
on Yardley Road with their flashers on.
Well, that's not your responsibility. I mean,
No, I know.
that's
I'm
laziness
just
on their part.
I'm saying for safety issues, it would be safer to have a driveway in the front than not. Or I just get packages, I find them in the bushes where they just thrown them over the fence because they can't find our house.
What do you intend to do with the existing driveway if the new one is installed?
I would like to put a gate up back there and not really use that driveway and just use the front.
So when you did your calculations for impervious surface coverage, did you consider having that existing driveway area removed and grassed over, which would actually reduce the amount of increase you're asking for?
We did that, we wouldn't be able to get to our garage. We have a 2-car garage back there where we pull the cars in. So if we did that, we wouldn't have access to pull the cars in.
Okay, so you're actually asking for another driveway area. You want to maintain both.
That would be the
Yes.
plan, yeah.
Would you want to reduce the area of your existing? I mean, that would counterbalance. I don't know how wide it is or if it's even feasible, but if you could reduce some of the area back there, not necessarily eliminate it, that would reduce the amount of stormwater infiltration you'd have to do
Well, I mean, it seems by the township's calculations, we have enough trees to offset water. And then if we did the drainage seepage bed, we shouldn't have an issue with water at all.
Well, if I may, should have doesn't necessarily mean that's what will happen. This is a theoretical calculation that's being provided, for one. And secondly, generally speaking, the zoning hearing board's duties is to provide the minimal relief necessary in order to make the property usable.
Okay.
And I think the concern is the safety issue as to that driveway coming off of Yardley Morrisville Road, especially at being that corner position. Because it doesn't look to me like there's any stop signs or traffic lights from Arbor Lee onto Yardley Morrisville, are there?
There's stop signs.
A stop sign only, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Kirk, if I may add, I did speak with our police traffic safety officer and reviewed this matter with him, and he had no objection to the driveway, provided PennDOT was okay with it, because this will require a PennDOT highway occupancy permit. There are a number of horseshoe-shaped driveways along the stretch of road, just for the reasons that were cited, so that people can go in and then go straight out without having to back up or anything like that onto the main road. So he didn't see a real safety concern here, but his only concern was that it did meet PennDOT criteria.
Again, I just wanted the board to be aware the township asked that I participate, as there had been some safety issues that they wanted to address.
Has there been any, when you say there's been safety issues, there have been numerous accidents?
I can't say offhand now. I think it was just the location of the proposed driveway, the shape of the driveway, and the fact that there apparently is an existing driveway to the property.
And it's close to the corner. Yeah, that corner is always tougher when it's close to the corner. Yeah, I'd like to see it a little bit smaller. I mean, I'm trying to see the hardship here. It's not a great deal of hardship. Obviously, the township's concerned. You still would have to go through the PennDOT approval as well. I don't know. What do you think, fellas? Any concerns over safety? I mean, impervious, we can lick that, but the safety is a concern right at the corner.
I mean, it is at the corner, but it looks like from the drawing, they're trying to pull it as far away from the corner as possible. Plus, it's the right-hand turn lane, so there wouldn't be anybody turning from Arbor Lee into that driveway unless there's some sort of PennDOT restriction with that sort of setback from the corner. So,
yeah, I have to agree with that.
The entrance and exit actually probably is safer if what's happening right now is drivers are parking on the street there. I would think it increases the safety, but I won't guarantee that.
I'm actually okay with the U-shaped driveway. I see a couple of them right there on the screen that have them. I can understand that. If there's not any record of a lot of problems there, I mean, I don't see the issue there, but that's just me. Anybody else?
Could it be contingent on PennDOT approval?
Yes.
I've already, sorry.
Go ahead.
I have applied with PennDOT, but they needed to hear, I needed to have some sort of acknowledgement from the township for them to process the application. So they just needed to know that you were aware that we were applying before they came out to look.
Right. They're not going to bother until you get past us.
They come to check the sight lines and the safety.
How from that property line where the driveway is to the corner, how many feet is that? Approximately. 150 feet. I'm trying to look for a measurement here.
Because I checked with PennDOT and they have a requirement that has to be, I think, like your property has to be 150 feet wide if you live at the corner. And so we fit we fit all their safety requirements. Like, we just haven't processed the application yet.
That's 150 feet.
Ours is 106. No, wait.
Not the road frontage side would be the question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't
have all
see that number.
underneath it.
Jim, can you weigh in on that frontage there?
It's 105.
It's 105 feet to the straight frontage to the curve.
I think maybe it had to be 50 feet from the curve with PennDOT.
It'll be approximately 75 feet from the near edge of the driveway over to the edge of the road.
Is that something that's acceptable by PennDOT?
I believe so, but they'll ultimately review that and approve that.
Mhm.
So, and if they don't, then it doesn't matter if a variance was granted, they won't be allowed to do this.
Right, right. Barb, would you like to say anything else, Barb?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Anybody else got something they want to say? I don't really see an issue here, as long as they do this, the seepage bed according to their accepted calculations. I'm okay with that. I do
agree.
think the U-shaped driveway is safer. I do agree with that. And there's several on that street. I mean, I got to kind of go along with that. Anybody else? Anybody in public comment? Anybody in somewhere? Anybody want to speak?
Public comment.
No public comment? You say no?
He said no.
No public comment.
No comment.
All right, well, Barb seems to be okay. The township seems to be satisfied. Would anybody like to make a motion based on the conditions we talked to them about? Nobody?
Move to approve Appeal 201875, contingent upon PennDOT approval and provision of a seepage bed to provide for infiltration to the agreement of the township.
To the reduction of the existing.
The existing, yep.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. You got it. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
All right. Thank you very much.
So we will get the calculations from Jim,
Yes.
and they'll be emailed or mailed to us. What we need.
You'll work with Jim later.
Okay.
Talk to Jim later. He'll be able to help you out. Okay?
All right.
Got it.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Thank you.
All right. Where are we at now?
Tim, go.
Oh, not what we did. Okay. Well, you know, we heard a lot about the property. We all know what it is. We all know it's not an impervious issue, right? It's not that. It's a buffer dimensional issue, correct?
Timco?
Is that right? Is there an impervious issue there?
I think Timco as a general, they don't have enough area to do.
Yeah,
what
they don't.
they want to do.
Yeah, their issue is buffers and yes.
Setbacks.
Oh, it's more than that, Tony. It's
Correct.
considerably more than that. It's as we talked about in our original hearing in May 5th, what I think we demonstrated was the application of all the different natural resource restrictions as it applies to this particular property, which has almost every conceivable natural resource located on it. If you applied all the ordinances to all the different natural resources, you would end up on an 1.5 acre lot with no building envelope. So where we left off last May was Greg Glitzer, who's here again this evening, our engineer from Gilmore. He had presented all the plans and calculations for all the natural resources, and We had concluded that night with the suggestion made, I think, by the solicitor that we consult with the township after that to determine if there was any interest in the township in considering an alternate either location or size or reconfiguration of the house footprint. And as a result of that suggestion, we agreed to continue the application from that night, which
Did
we
we
did.
talk to the township about this?
I did. I did follow up with the administration several times in the next couple of weeks after that early May hearing, and they advised that they were not interested in discussing any possible modification of the footprint of the home and where it was located on the lot. So since then, we've had a series of continuances, once because of the power storm or the electrical storm that knocked out power, once because we didn't have a quorum, once because Greg and John Mano, my other witness, couldn't be available. So,
Right.
so that brings us to tonight, when we were going to follow up and address some of the questions that came at the end of last night or at the end of the May hearing about size of the proposed house on the lot, its orientation, those kinds of things.
So I just want to be clear. I mean, you're going for a special exception here, but there's a lot of things. Well,
No.
that's what the original plan said.
I'm going multiple variances, Tony,
Okay.
because of the lot is essentially sterilized from doing anything without relief that we're seeking. And the relief that we are seeking is tailored to the plan that we submitted.
Okay.
Right.
Now,
Can I just clarify between our last hearing and now? The
Please.
variances are dealing with the front yard setback, a rear yard setback, and then the buffer for wetlands. The required buffer for wetlands. Am I missing any variances, Mr. Murphy?
Front yard setback, rear yard setback, buffer setback. Yeah, those three, Barb, and confirming it with Greg. But yeah, those are the three.
Those are the three, correct. All right, I just want to make sure.
Yep. Correct.
where does this fall under? It is not special exception. Is it conditional use? Is it curative?
No.
use?
No, it's a variance.
This is just a plain old variance. Are we all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought I remember seeing special, but it's been a while. So it's not a special.
The bell went off. Who was right? Somebody right, somebody wrong when the bell goes off?
So now, even with this, you still would, even if we were inclined to grant these variances, that you still need to go through the Bucks County stormwater management. Am I correct there or no?
Jim Majewski and Greg Glitzer would need to design a stormwater management system for this home on this lot in whatever configuration it would take, much like any other building permit application would. This is not a subdivision, so
Right.
if we were to assume we would get some relief, then, and Greg and Jim can talk to this, but yeah, I would assume any relief would be subject to the design and approval by the township engineer of a stormwater management system. So,
Is this lot something you can do where it wouldn't, where it would not add to the issue with Brock Creek? 'Cause I'm sure that's right behind there, and that is a raging torrent. I'm concerned about that.
right, and perhaps Greg can talk about that. That was one of the questions, Tony, that got raised at the end of last meeting's hearing, and Greg was prepared to talk about that further tonight, so he can do that. Greg, you've already been sworn from May, so just continue if you'd like.
Yeah, so the plot plan that we submitted, and when we get into it, we can share my screen if you want. We looked at some potential roof drain connectors into seepage beds in the front yard where we think we may have some better soils around the perimeter. So we know we have to comply with township stormwater management ordinance, much like the previous applicant where we're in the We have a Township 167, Act 167 plan that comply with. So we've got water quality, we've got volume control, and peak rate control. So we know we have all that ahead of us.
It sounds like you get a lot to do. Barb, the township is not involved with this one, or are they?
No, I am. I am involved. The township directed me to oppose this.
Okay, I was just making sure. It does seem like there's a lot to be done to make all this work, where it's not going to have a detrimental effect for the creek behind it and that neighborhood behind it. Is that something we can pull off? And does anybody have any questions about that? I mean, I certainly do.
Well, the burden, Tony, is on us, if we got that far, to design a stormwater management system that complies with the Act 167 requirements and the township ordinances. So whether you condition any approval or not, that's still our obligation to do. So one way or the other, if we got that far, we're going to have to do it.
All right. Anybody want to add to that? I mean, I understand what he's saying. I don't know what part the township is opposed to, but Barb, did you want to speak on that at this point?
Township basically believes that that the size of the proposed house is such that they're not seeking the minimum relief that could be acquired, that their desire to construct a house of the proposed size and magnitude is in creating some of these variance requests, and again, not representing the minimal relief necessary to use the property.
Well, I understand that, Barb, but according to Mr. Murphy, he says that really the property is worthless without any kind of variance. So what's the minimum they can do?
Well,
They've offered us nothing in terms of guidance. That was the whole point of continuing the hearing in May. And they said, look, we don't have any interest in talking to you about it. So I said, okay. That's why we're here tonight, Tony, to present more testimony about that one issue, about what is reasonable in the neighborhood and area where the property is, as to what makes sense and what doesn't. That's why we're here tonight.
Barb, why does it, I mean, maybe this is a stupid question, but why doesn't the township care?
What do you mean?
They don't want to advise, or you're not supposed to advise, or are they waiting for him?
It's not the township's position to tell them necessarily what it is. They have to meet certain criteria for relief. And it's the township's position that they're not presenting the minimum relief, request for minimal relief necessary. We're not going to tell them what to do, what not to do. That's where I'm at.
Right. So if you condition it upon that, does that seem reasonable, or am I out of line here? That it would meet all the requirements the township wants?
They have no requirements other than the fact that the township believes it's just greater than what otherwise should be permitted.
Okay. Anybody else like to add to this?
Yeah, I'd like to finish making my record by having Greg and John Meno testify about these issues.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Sure.
So whenever you guys are ready, we'll do that. I think
ready.
we're pretty well organized and we can do it pretty efficiently.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Greg, you've already been sworn from May. We previously shared with the township a couple months ago when we thought we were going to do the continued hearing in August before the electrical storm knocked us out, some additional exhibits that we want to review with the board this evening. Greg, and I think you can control the screen, Greg, so you can call them up. So if you want to go ahead and select the first exhibit. Barb, I think we're up to exhibit A10.
Yes, that's the next one.
Yeah, A10.
And Adam, hopefully you concur. So for record purposes, let's identify what exhibit A10 is. A10 is identified as the record plan for the phase one of the St. Ignatius subdivision. That is a plan that was approved a number of years ago by the township. It fronts on Sandy Run Road immediately to the north of this site, and it consists of a cul-de-sac of 7 building lots and a basin, total of 8, and then another separate freestanding lot number 9 that fronts on Sandy Run Road. That plan happened to be prepared by Greg in Greg's office, so he's intimately familiar with it. Greg, is that a fair summary of it?
Yeah, actually, one of our branch offices prepared it, but I was very familiar with it.
And you have chosen to highlight in red a number of various dimensions on what we'll mark as Exhibit A10, right?
Correct.
And before we talk about that, let's remind everybody what the dimensions are on the building footprint that we propose as part of our plan. Before we compare these dimensions to that, all right? So
okay. I'm going to flip back to the plan that was submitted with the application that's part of the record, and I've just highlighted the width and the depth of the proposed unit for the applicant.
And that should have been exhibit, and I think for Adam and Barb's purpose, I think that's Exhibit A2, probably that you're looking at.
Is that different than Exhibit A9?
I think A9 is just a colored version of it, Barb.
Thank
You're
you.
right, Barb. Yep. So that shows a width of the home of 52 feet in red and a depth of 45 feet, right, Greg?
Correct.
Okay. So to Barb's question or position with regard to the township, they believe I'm guessing that they think a 45-foot deep by 52-foot wide building footprint is too big, for lack of a better term. So turn now to what we're referring to as Exhibit A10, the St. Ignatius plan. And for those that might want to know how it was marketed, I think it was referred to as the Estates of Sandy Run. I think that was the name of the subdivision. Okay. Greg, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so this is due north of the site along Sandy Run Road, and it consists of the cul-de-sac that Ed mentioned, and we've highlighted the dimensions on several of the typical house products that were offered there, and they vary.
And Greg, the lot sizes are relatively consistent there. They run from 12,000 square feet to about 18,000 or so. Is that right? Right.
But quite a bit smaller than the Timco lot that we're
right. The Timco noise lot at issue tonight is 1.4 acres, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. So you have a range of lots that go from 12,600 up to maybe 20,000, it looks like. And it appears from looking at those lot sizes that the both house and driveway configurations vary a little bit, right?
Right. We have front entry garages on the narrower lots, such as 1, 2, and 3 that access the cul-de-sac. We have some side entry garages on the bulb where they have more pie-shaped lots and a wider envelope, with the exception of lot 6, which is the front entry garage. And the dimensions of these vary. The widths vary from 52 feet to 54 feet. Most are 52 feet. And the depths, depending on the size of the garage, vary from a 40-foot unit on the front entries and one of the side entry garages where we do have some extra envelopes available to 42 feet. But we wanted to also call attention not just to the lots around the cul-de-sac, but maybe a more applicable unit to the application, since it has access on Sandy Run Road, is lot 9, and that's a 54-foot wide unit and a 55-foot deep unit. Now that accommodates a 3-car garage, side entry garage, so it allows you to back up, turn around, and head straight on out onto Sandy Run Road.
Okay, so the conclusion that you've drawn from a comparison of the Estates of Sandy Run / St. Ignatius plan with our proposed single-family home is what?
That we're right in the mid range of the lot depths. We're consistent with or smaller than the range of the lot width, and we are sort of in the mid range between the 40s, the 42s, and the 55 foot deep units. Our 45 foot deep unit is comparable to these products.
Okay. All right, so that's Exhibit A10. Exhibit A11, I'd like you to call that up and then describe for the board and the audience what that plan is and what it represents.
Which one did we identify as A11, Ed?
The I think you got it off Google Maps or the Delaware Valley Planning Commission, Ariel.
Okay. Let me just, I think I must have closed that.
Is this the one that is entitled Surrounding Features Exhibit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I'm going to just stop the share and I'll call that back up in a second.
Okay.
Now, those other lots you just described, that other neighborhood, do they have the same issues that this lot has? I know they're the same size, and that's a valid point. But, do they have the same buffers that we have here? The same issues that we should be concerned about. And I realize that the lots are about the same size, and the housing is about the same size. But
the house is bigger, Tony. I think the point of what we're going to show you is the houses are considerably larger.
The other houses.
Yeah.
Let's take a look and see what you got.
Sorry about that. I dropped that out. I know there were some.
Before you start, Greg, we'll mark this for Adam's purposes and Barb. This will be A11, and as Barb correctly highlighted it, it's referred to as the Surrounding Features Plan, right?
Correct.
Prepared by you, and I can't see the date of it, but
August 3rd, 2020.
Okay. And what does Exhibit A11 represent?
It's a aerial photo with parcel boundaries and streets of the site and the Brock Creek corridor. And the nearest house, existing house across Brock Creek, we've added some dimensions to that. There was some, it felt that at the last hearing that there was some difficulty in perceiving the scale of the actual house that was proposed on our site. And I know I probably propagated some of that misunderstanding when I was calculating square footages, because like the engineer that I am, I took the floor plate dimensions and just doubled it. Well, that was too large of a square footage for the actual house, because some of the areas above the garage were not full second stories and this kind of thing. So we just thought it would be helpful to show something in the vicinity here, and zooming up, just the overall out-to-out dimensions of this unit, a little, almost 69 feet wide and 45 and a half feet deep. So a bit wider than our unit, but the same depth.
Yeah, I can see that. The lot's big. What do you do with this lot if you don't let them build on it? Is this something they just throw away? I mean, I'm a little concerned that you don't give them some kind of variance. What good is this lot?
Well, I don't know that it's appropriate for me right now, Tony, to answer that with my argument, but that's something you should probably talk to Barb about. All I would say to you is that I think I mentioned it when we started in May, that there's a theory in the law that's a de facto taking, and I think your failure, if it is, to give us relief sterilizes the lot, which effectively acts as the condemnation of it. So one way or the other, I think you're going to own it, and you're going to buy it one way or the other. And the question is how and when that happens, unless you give us relief. So, but that's for another day. But that is essentially our view of this. Absent some relief, you have sterilized that property to our detriment. So.
Yeah, I understand that. Should we break out into I'm going to ask some legal questions here, but I don't, is there some way we can break into that a separate room?
Yeah, the
Could we let them,
can
could we let them finish their presentation first?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Why don't we go, Greg, to our last exhibit? And so you see what the houses are like on Salem Court across the creek. And I think there was a suggestion made at the last hearing that somehow what we were proposing was disproportionate in size to those homes in the immediate neighborhood. And between looking at the St. Ignatius plan and this, I think it's pretty clear that we are not. The last exhibit we'll mark as Exhibit A12. Greg, and if you would please describe what A12 is.
These are a set of marketing elevations of the units that were offered in the estates of Sandy Run. So front views, architectural elevations, and then we'll show you some the floor plans that correspond to that.
Mm-hmm. And the particular style that's referred to as the Sterling model on Exhibit A12 presumes a side entry garage, correct?
It does, yeah.
All right, and that's going to be, Tony, to one of your earlier questions, is something we're going to focus on in a minute, and how a side entry garage relates to the size of the home and also access to it. So, Greg, if you want to walk through the floor plan quickly, and then we'll have Mr. Meno also comment on that.
Yeah, here's the first floor plan. This is one of the side entries. The side entry is in this area. It's a two-car garage. First floor, we have 1,438 square feet of area, of floor area. And you'll see where I had traced the garage. Here's where we had some of the discrepancies in floor areas from before, where we don't have a full usable second floor that matches the floor plate of the first floor. So you see this is actually an optional sitting room that's over the garage, but it's not the full second floor over the garage. So it's very typical 1,700 square feet on the second floor. So we go through. There were some other models, and quite honestly, the elevation views they always show, just like the sample homes, they always will show you a side entry garage because of the curb appeal of not seeing the garage doors, which I think is an important consideration. So here's the Yardley model. Here's a 2.5 car garage, and this is actually kind of what we're showing, 24 feet wide, just to get you 2 cars in there, but you can also have a little bit of storage space in it, and a pretty reasonable middle ground.
So these 3 models are the ones you have a selection to. You're going to select from one of these 3 models for this.
Well, we kind of use these as comparables, but this Aspen model, the last one, is actually bigger than what we could fit on there. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, realistically, Tony, we'd be doing one of the first 2.
Right. Now, Greg, can you go back to one of the A9, I think, or one of the earlier ones that shows the footprint of the house and the driveway orientation for the side entry garage? And I want to talk about that for a moment. Okay. So one of the questions at the last meeting was, you could reduce your impervious if you didn't have a side entry garage. You could limit it somewhat, and obviously that would be a fair statement. There would be less impervious if there was a front entry garage as opposed to a side entry. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. why have we elected, as part of this application, to propose a side entry garage as opposed to a front entry garage?
Yeah, just like in Lot 9 on the Estates at Sandy Run there, we want to provide the opportunity or avoid the opportunity, or minimize is probably the right word, of backing out into Sandy Run Road. We've tried to maximize the distance from the intersection of Edgewood and Sandy Run, and I'll just get a measurement here. From the center line of the intersection to roughly the center line of the driveway, about a little under 189 feet, which we think is an appropriate offset from the intersection.
I think all of us need to remember now that those residents of Sandy Run Road have enjoyed very little traffic over the last couple of years since the road's been closed. But with the advent of the presumed decision this month or coming to authorize the installation of the roundabout at Edgewood and Sandy Run, that road's going to reopen. And we think it's given 190 feet away from that intersection, it would be foolhardy to recommend something where you back out onto that road in that location. So we firmly believe that a side entry garage represents the better choice, and for a little bit more of an impervious driveway, it's a far safer arrangement. And obviously Lot 9 of St. Ignatius, or Estates of Sandy Run down Sandy Run, has that exact same configuration. It's one thing if you were having a front entry garage in a cul-de-sac where there is limited traffic. It's a whole other situation where you have a backing in or backing out onto Sandy Run with the traffic much higher. So
Is that this proposed roundabout, is that going to take any of that land up on your lot there? Is that where that roundabout's going on? I don't know anything about this, I guess it's a circle they're putting there. Where is that going to be positioned?
We have not been advised, Tony, by the township that there is any potential condemnation of any portion of the frontage of this lot to install that roundabout. But the plans, I don't know, have yet been fully engineered and submitted. I know what I read in the newspaper accounts, including last week, that the board is about ready to, I think, make a decision to authorize that design and construction. So I don't know.
Wow.
But I think it's coming.
We certainly got some information that we don't have. We need some more information. I'm a little concerned that we don't have that all we need. And I think that's one of the reasons the township is probably against it. Nobody seems to know for sure. I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen here.
Okay, well, we wanted to talk about that. I'd also like, unless anybody has any questions for Greg, we can defer it, but I'd like to have John Meno testify as well about this issue if I could.
Well, Ed, before you go there, can I cross-examine?
Yeah, sure.
John? Thank you. John, quick question, or a few quick questions.
Greg, you mean?
I mean, Greg, sorry. This lot is 13,384 square feet, correct?
No.
Who said no?
I said no.
Well, the application says lot size, 13,384 square feet.
Now, that's the net of the calculation that Greg did. The gross square footage of the lot, I think, is almost 1.4 acres, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's not what's on the application. That doesn't ask for gross versus net. It says lot size, and it says 13,000.
Let Greg talk about it. He can clarify.
Yeah, it's in the definition. So like the gross square footage or the gross area is 63,272 square feet.
Where are you reading that, Greg, to address Barb's question? What exhibit are you looking at and where the calculation is and what the net is?
I think it's A2 lot area calculations.
Gross site 1.453 acres. Is that what I'm reading?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's on exhibit A2, which is the site plan that was provided.
Yes.
And that was 63,000.
272.
272. All right.
Now,
They
how
called
did
that
you,
out as 1.453 acres earlier.
now, to answer Barb's question though, Greg, we do show on the application a 13,384 number. Can you explain to Barb where that came from?
I think that was, I don't know offhand, I don't have that in front of me, but once you take away a certain non-buildable area, you are left, because as we testified before, we have overlapping resources. And once you take away those protected resources, including the wetland buffer, you're left with a much smaller area. But I can't make a correlation on how that the number in the application matches these calculations on the plan.
All right. So then if I accept your representation of it being 13,384 net square feet of buildable area, and then I go back to your exhibit A10, that was the St. Ignatius subdivision record plan, I see lot 1 has what appears to have a gross square footage and then a net square footage, correct?
Correct.
And the net square footage is 13,005 feet. And according to that, it's showing a house with a depth of 40 feet, correct?
Correct.
All right. Then you have lot 5, which does not make a distinction of net or gross square footage. So I'm going to accept that it's a net square footage area of 18,899 square feet on lot 5.
Yes.
And that shows a larger house, 54 feet by 56 feet.
Correct.
And then you have your other lot 6, roughly 14,000 square feet. And that has, it appears to be a depth of 42 feet, right?
Correct.
But I can't tell what the width is.
54.
54. So that's a house about comparable to what is being proposed for this lot, correct?
Yeah, we're a little narrower than that. We're at 52, but a little bit deeper, 45. So, but
Okay.
very comparable.
And then you have another comparable style house of 52 feet by 40 feet on lot 7. And it appears that that net lot's area is about 7,000 square feet greater than the subject property.
Correct.
So it stands to reason that the proposed house, 52 feet wide by 45 feet deep, can be reduced consistent with what has occurred in other areas of the township that would help minimize the impact of some of the variance relief being requested.
Yes, you could go down to the minimum driveway or garage width as shown there. Yeah, you could.
Okay. Now, this property, the subject property, is not part of the St. Ignatius subdivision at all, correct?
Correct.
You're just using the St. Ignatius subdivision as comparables to what is being proposed for the house on this subject property.
Yeah, something in the vicinity, something that we would think would be could be the same builder or a comparable builder, and it just provides a scale reference that we thought everyone would be familiar with.
Okay. Do you know if any of these lots for St. Ignatius had the same issues with natural resources that the subject property does?
Not on these specific lots. There are resources that had to be dealt with and avoided elsewhere in the subdivision.
But
Well-
the subdivision set aside those natural resource areas so that they weren't impacted by the construction of any single-family homes.
Correct.
Okay. Now, explain again the surrounding features plan that you prepared, Exhibit A11. Again, what was that purpose?
That was to establish the scale of the houses right behind and across Brock Creek from the application, from the lot.
Okay, but it appears that on Exhibit A11, you've only actually provided dimensions for the one house on parcel designated number 6.
That's correct.
Okay. So is it your testimony that the remaining 5 houses that are shown are the same size, or you don't know?
No, I don't know.
Okay. And then you were providing Exhibit A12 merely as illustrative of the type of house that's being proposed to be constructed?
Correct.
Okay.
There was questions at the hearing. There was the previous hearing, and I believe there was questions about the appropriateness of the size of the house by Mr. Polsky, I believe, and I believe that is his house that we dimensioned there. Relative to the this exhibit here, I think Mr. Meno is going to speak to these relative to a real estate point of view.
Okay. Now, excuse my ignorance, but I need to ask this question. On the Sterling model, the square footage on the first floor plan shows 1,438 square feet. For the second floor, why would the square footage be larger?
John, maybe that's something that you
Building
can...
over the garage.
John, you got to get sworn first.
Okay, so is this something that can be deferred to the other witness?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I have no other questions of this witness. Thank you.
Assuming that there are no others, we can have Mr. Meno sworn now, or if there are other questions, we can take them, whatever the board's preference is.
Any questions? If not, let's swear him in.
Who's our, is that Bill? Okay.
Yeah, I'll swear him in. Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Meno, for the stenographer's benefit, would you please spell your full name for the record?
It's John Meno, JOHNMENNO.
And what is your business address, John?
693 South State Street, Newtown, PA 18940.
And what's your occupation?
I am a real estate agent.
And for how long you've been a licensed real estate agent?
For over 40 years now.
And where is your license?
Right here in Pennsylvania, and it hangs in the Newtown office.
And in the course of your real estate career, where have you principally operated in, and if you have any specialties, what might they be?
One of my specialties has been land development and builder use for new construction.
What does that mean?
The acquisition of land, the working with the developers in creating and designing homes for sites, and then the marketing and sales of the new homes.
And where is your principal area that you work in? Is it in the central Lower Bucks area, or is it more specific?
It's primarily in the Lower Bucks area here. You know, the Newtown, Northampton, Lower Makefield, Upper Makefield areas.
Okay. And even before I reached out to you for this assignment, you were familiar, were you not, with what's referred to as the St. Ignatius / Estates of Sandy Run project?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also familiar with Prime Builders, who was the builder developer that actually developed that parcel and built the homes?
Very much so.
Okay. And you're familiar, I think, with the nature of the application that we've pursued both in May and this evening, and you're familiar with the various exhibits that Mr. Glitzer and I presented to the board in May and again this evening, right?
I am, yes.
And you're familiar with the issue that's at hand tonight, which seems to be narrowed down even more, and that is whether or not and what is being proposed is in fact reasonable and is the minimum relief that we would need to make a reasonable use of this parcel, given its site constraints, right? John?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've heard tonight the various questioning and testimony about the reasonableness of the footprint of the home, which is, as we have proposed it, 45 feet in depth and 52 feet in width, right?
Correct.
And you've seen exhibit A10 that shows the different house dimensions of the lots, both inside the cul-de-sac as well as on lot 9, right?
Correct.
And you've heard Greg's testimony about the fact that you might be able to shave a couple of feet off of the depth of the home, right?
I heard that.
And I'd like you first to talk about what you think about the reasonableness of the 45 by 52 footprint that we have, and give us all the benefit of your experience as to whether or not that's reasonable and what flexibility, if any, there is as you lay out a house in this location.
Well, typically how I would start with a builder is we would look at the location and the size of the lot, and then work with the architect to design a home that would be appropriate for its location and for its lot size. In this particular situation here, given its location, lower Makefield and so on here, the size that is proposed here is in line with what you would expect to market a home here for this property. When you're doing a single family home, anything less than, like our townhomes today, your townhomes today, the depth of a townhome is 42 feet. So to go anything less than that, you would really be compromising the home design and making it a very shallow home, which would compromise its value too, and its marketability.
What about, do you have an opinion about the feasibility or necessity, depending on your point of view, of a front entry garage as opposed to a side entry garage? The several models that are reflected in Exhibit A12 all show a side entry garage, akin to Lot 9 from the St. Ignatius subdivision, right?
Yes.
Given its location on Sandy Run Road, what's your opinion, if you have one, about the benefit of a side entry versus a front entry?
Well, to me, there really is no deciding factor here other than going with a side entry garage. Number one, the type of buyer that this is going to be attracting is going to be a family, and safety is going to be paramount. You're not going to want teenage kids backing out on the Sandy Run Road. Parents are going to be upset about that, and rightfully so. For that reason, a side entry garage provides the best method for a safety situation where anybody can back out of the garage in a turnaround and pull out and exit the driveway face forward that way.
You heard Barb Kirk question Greg about the floor plans of either the Yardley or the Sterling models that you have shared with us. And I should make it clear, you are the one that provided these sample brochures and floor plans to us, correct?
That is correct. I have represented Prime Builders in past communities as well.
Okay. So you're intimately familiar with their floor plans and the style and type of home they build.
Correct.
Now, to Barb's question about why are the square footages of livable space or non-livable space, we should clarify that. Why are the square footages on the second floor potentially larger than square footages of space on the first floor?
So again, the square footage here that is shown is heated square footage, not including the garage. And if you can go back, Greg, to the elevation, you'll see, Barb, that the front elevation of the garage here shows the window up on the upper portion of the garage. So now what the builders are doing, you're capitalizing and trying to maximize your square footage over that space above the garage. And that is why the second floor square footage is larger than the first floor footprint.
So the first floor footprint in our situation is, it shows a 45 by 52 dimension, right? Part of that 52 dimension includes the 2 or 2.5 car garage. Correct, John?
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and that square footage, while it counts, it's not counted as livable square footage. And on that Sterling model floor plan that we're looking at, that 1438, I think you testified, excludes the garage area?
Yes.
Okay, and that's typical for the way builders calculate square footage. They don't include garage space?
That is correct.
Okay. And Greg, do you want to flip to the second floor? Now, what you just described, that sitting room is the area above the garage that on the elevation was where the window is, right?
The sitting room and a portion of the master bedroom is still over the garage space as well.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, talk a little bit about square footages, what you think the lower Makefield experience has been. I know you've done some amount of research to look at the average square footage of homes sold in the recent past in lower Makefield. You want to share the results of that research with the board?
Well, I mean, just now taking a snapshot of the absorption in the last 6 months in lower Makefield of single family homes that have sold in the $600,000 to $750,000 price range. You're looking at homes that are in the age of 20 to 28 years old. And the average square footage is 3,360 square feet, which is, kind of surprising maybe to some, but in lower Makefield, that is pretty much the norm. And, and again, those homes were 20 to 25 years old. And this is an accurate snapshot of homes that have closed in the last 6 months.
So, from your experience, the 45 by 52 footprint with the side entry garage is not at all out of line with what you expect the market in lower Makefield to be, consistent with the sales pace of the estates of Sandy Run up the street, and current trends in the marketplace. You don't want to, and let me ask you this. I think the suggestion was made at the end of the May hearing that couldn't you build a much shallower home and a much longer home there? Would you comment on that, if you would, please?
I think I'll defer back to one of my opening statements as far as the design of the current townhomes you see today. And they are 40 to 42 feet in depth for a townhome. To take the square footage, to take the depth of a design of a single family home down anything really smaller than that, it would really make an obsolescence floor plan for a home like this.
So
It
you
would
would not
compromise
recommend.
your entry foyer. It would compromise the whole design of what you see here, even just using this Sterling as an example.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for Mr. Mano, Barb, if you want to cross-examine.
Thank you. All right, so I just want to make sure I understand, Mr. Meno, on your research for sales in the last 6 months,
Yes.
you stated that the average age of the homes that sold were anywhere from 20 to 25 years old.
In the price range from 6 to 750.
Okay. Did you research houses that would have sold anywhere, say, from $300,000 to $500,000 in the last 6 months?
No, I didn't, Barb, only because of knowing the location of this lot and knowing the type of home that would be built here. That's what you're going to be selling a home for in that location, given what they were selling up the street as well.
So let me ask you this. Are you familiar with the Yardley Hunt area?
Sure.
And that has a large variety of single-family homes, correct?
Correct.
And they have side garages generally, correct?
Correct.
And their average sales, if you look at some of the recent statistics, have the most expensive house going for, say, roughly $600,000 or less. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So there are homes within the lower Makefield area that do sell for less than $600,000 that do not necessarily need to be of the size that has been presented tonight.
I think that's an accurate statement that there are homes that are selling for less, sure.
Okay. And Lower Makefield is also still retains some of its rural characteristics, which is a big draw for many people. Is that correct?
That is totally correct.
And there's a lot of older homes of smaller size that has that unique characteristic that would...
Character is a good word, yes.
Okay. So it is possible that the proposed house to be designed for this lot could have a unique characteristic with a smaller footprint that would still be marketable in this area.
I guess you'd have to quantitate that with a price point then too, the cost associated with that. I think here, given the size of the land and given its location, I think what has been done up the road has proven that that absorption is what the public likes and wants. And I think it was really well received and it looks good. And I think that that's something that I would continue going down that same path, doing something very similar.
Okay, but that what was done up the road is but one example of the style of homes that sell in Lower Makefield, correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no other questions.
I got this old size house, and of course, the bigger it is, the more money it sells for. And obviously, that's what you're trying to do, and you're trying to match the other houses in the neighborhood. And I think that's a great idea. I do think all the houses seem to be the same square footage of lot, pretty much based on the size of the house. But there is some issues with that lot. And Barb has a little point. I mean, 500,000, 600,000, either you're going to cheapen the neighborhood if you sell it for 500 as opposed to 6. I mean, there is an issue here that we're trying to...
I think the bigger issue, Tony, and what I was going to ask John is, having listened to what Barb just asked you, John, you would still come back to the point that there is still a minimum depth to any home that would be built there that is probably going to have to be in the 40 to 42 foot range, because nothing else you're going to do there, as perhaps kitschy and as quaint and unique as it is still not practically or commercially feasible. You have, if a townhome has a 40-foot depth, you're certainly not going to build a single family home that's not at least that or a little bit more, right?
Well, I'm in agreement with that statement.
Okay.
I think it's a little subjective, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Understood. And Tony, just so you know, we could have proposed a bigger footprint than we did. We're not. We're trying to, the question is one of balance. I think we can all agree.
Yeah.
We're trying to balance out the impact safety-wise, natural resource-wise, and still build something that's commercially reasonable. It doesn't have to be the biggest, and it probably isn't the smallest. We try to find a middle ground that everybody can live with. That's where I think we're trying to go. And what we tried to do tonight is to show you that what we've done is hopefully in the sweet spot in the middle of the newest project that's been built in Lower Make, which is right down the street. And
I understand. I understand.
That's where we're at, Tony. We're not trying to be.
I don't take it that way.
Transparent about that. So.
You've been good. We're just trying to reach a middle ground where the township is accepting of this, and as well as us and you guys as well. I think we're working that way, but I don't know if we're there yet.
Okay, well, that's fair. I don't have any.
Now's the time to do the breakout.
Yeah, I have no other questions for Mr. Meno, so fine.
Excuse me, we do have one person for public comment.
Oh, all right. Bring them on.
I've just added Lee into the room, and Lee needs to hit *6 to unmute himself. And Lee should also be watching, turning off the computer and using his phone only.
And Greg, you should show on your screen the plan, the surrounding features plan, Exhibit A11.
Lee, can you please hit *6 on your phone to unmute yourself, Lee?
Hello?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
All right, great. Can all hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Well, thank you. It's Lee Polsky. I reside at 724 Salem Court, directly across Brock Creek from this proposed residence that Timco is interested in building. My neighbors are to the left at 718 and 730. I'm not sure if they're on the line because the message came through that this meeting was going to be as scheduled on time tonight, but I saw it. I'm not sure if they did, but they're on my page. The word compromising has been brought up a great deal this evening. I'd like to know this, whether they understand how the building of this structure is going to compromise my home at 724 and 718 and 730 with respect to the tearing down of trees, which provides a wind barrier to the trees on the opposite side of Brock Creek, as well as water rising, which absorbs water on that side of Brock Creek where the structure is going, and where all the water would come onto my side of Brock Creek and ultimately into my structure, which it has done previously, as well as 718 and as well as 730. I'm living here since 1978, so I've seen a lot that has gone on over the years. We're currently in the FEMA 100-year flood zone, and we'd like to remain within that flood zone. And our biggest concern, and we voiced this at previous meetings, and it was not brought up again today. Everything was about how the size of this home and what could be compromised to get it within the structure of what it needs to be in order to build it. But we're being compromised on Salem Court is our objection, and that we could ultimately be thrown out of the 100-year flood zone if something were to happen with respect to flooding in the home that's being built, including the homes on Salem Court. Now, is there a basement being built into this Timco property? Is there a basement in that property proposed on Sandy Run?
Ed.
Hello?
Greg, do you want to answer that if you know?
I don't know for sure. I suspect there would be.
Well, right there, whoever your potential buyer is, and I'm not sure if you already have a potential buyer, but that's a mistake, because unless there's proper drainage with a proper French drain, sump pumps, and the control of water from Brock Creek, which turns into the rapids. It's not a little tiny creek. The Brock Creek turns into enormous rapid water during heavy rains. And water has entered all of our structures, and it will, in fact, enter the home that is proposed to being built on Sandy Run Road. I just want you all to know that. And if there is a buyer in the room that is thinking about buying this property, it's a very, very big mistake. But my biggest concern is how it compromises my home and our neighbor's home, the removal of trees, which absorbs water on that side of Brock Creek, and wind barrier, which prevents trees from falling down on our side of Brock Creek, because it protects us with additional trees of coming down. And we, like I said, we've been here since 1978, and we've had no damages thus far. And I'm concerned about this property being compromised and our property being compromised. I just think it's a very big mistake. And I'd like to hear from other people on your end as to what your thoughts are based on my comments. Jim?
Jim, who?
Jim?
Jim, you gonna answer?
Well, I think it's the applicant's responsibility that during their design and construction, that they demonstrate that they meet all stormwater management requirements and all requirements of the floodplain management ordinances. And that would require more detailed plans to ascertain whether or not they can meet those requirements.
And how would they handle stormwater management on the opposite side of Brock Creek to protect my property and my neighbor's property at 718 and 730? Same thing.
I believe that's a question for the applicant's engineer.
It's a good question.
I'd like the question answered.
Yeah, we would propose a series of underground seepage beds, probably under the driveway, perhaps even not unlike what we were talking about. The prior application was talking about edge drains.
Under what driveway? Sorry.
Under the proposed driveway and adjacent to the proposed driveway. We would also
water seeks its own level.
Yes, it does.
When that water rises, I don't know if you've ever seen Brock Creek during a storm.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Have you?
I saw it 4 days ago when I was riding by it. It was a raging torrent.
You haven't seen it like I've seen it since 1978. When it comes 25% up the hill and back of my home, if it weren't for the $30,000 I invested in French drains and 3 sump pumps into my home, I would constantly have water in my basement. And my neighbor to my left and my neighbors to my right had to do the same thing. It's a serious problem that nobody is paying attention to. You're paying attention to the size of the property and not the damage that it can possibly cause by tearing down trees that absorb water.
Is it a possibility, if I could just interrupt for a second, sir, I apologize.
Sure.
That these mitigation efforts that you're talking about, the seepage beds and so forth, is it possible that it could improve his situation?
No, it won't improve. Why would you think it would improve?
Well,
Excuse me. if you have trees and roots that are absorbing water on that side of Brock Creek, how will that improve anything?
Well, I don't know. Other mitigation efforts could maybe mitigate that, whatever those things are doing. I'm not asking you. I'm trying to ask this the engineer here if it's a possibility. It may not be. You could be 100% right. I'm just throwing it out there. Is it possible that this could improve this situation?
Greg, do you have an opinion about that at this point or not?
I do. Understand the concern and the impacts of living adjacent to the floodplain of the creek. Obviously, it is a pre-existing problem that Mr. Polsky and his neighbors have, without a doubt. Removing a few trees at this point in the watershed, I'm convinced will have very little, if not any measurable impact on the flood elevation.
What do you mean a few trees?
Don't interrupt.
It's more than a few trees. You're building a big home.
Let him finish, please.
One at a time, guys.
You asked the question, let him answer.
Go ahead.
We have to model the impact of the loss of trees in our stormwater runoff to the creek, basically running off of this lot. This lot is not your problem. Your problem is what's coming downstream from all the drainage area. And I haven't looked at the entire drainage area, but I know Brock Creek and I know it pretty well. Everything that comes down is causing that floodplain, is defining that floodplain.
Except when Brock Creek fills up and the floodplain and the flood comes down Brock Creek, the water disperses to the right and the water disperses to the left. If you remove trees on the right, it has nowhere to go except to the left. That's my property.
And quite honestly, sir, looking at floodplain hydraulics, removal of trees, and I'm not suggesting there's no impact. We have to manage that impact with the runoff from this lot. But honestly, in a floodplain hydrology, trees in the floodplain provide roughness and retardance of flow. So every argument that you make that says this is going to be a devastating impact on you, I can kind of counter with real science. It says when we take out trees in the floodplain, the flood water actually flows a little bit better. But we do have to model the runoff impacts of the loss of the trees.
And how would you model the runoff on my side of Brock Creek?
I'm not. I have to model it on my side of Brock Creek, sir.
Excuse me?
I'm not. I have to model the impact of the runoff on our side of Brock Creek.
No, you would have to do the same on my side as well, if it's impacting me. And I'll see to it that it gets done through the township.
Good for you.
Excuse me?
I said good. We will do what we need to do, as Jim Majewski said. There are ordinances that have to be met. We intend to meet them.
You're making a big mistake with this, I can tell you all.
Thank you for your comment.
But we appreciate your concern. And again, I'm just trying to work this out for everybody's benefit. And I understand what he's saying because we go through this a lot. And I understand your position, too, with the creek. And I do have to say, I mean, he's responsible for his lot, not your lot. But he still has to consider that. If it's
his concern is for his lot. I understand that. But as a resident, as a neighbor, he has to be concerned for how his lot, as in building what he's doing, how it will impact neighbors around him. I'm a neighbor.
Yes, he said that.
I know, but I'd like to know what's going to be done in order to protect me if this is approved. I don't know if this is even approved yet.
Well, we haven't seen the actual design, what's needed to be done yet. So we haven't got to that stage yet. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to work out now with all the parties involved, including yourself.
Okay.
We have to start somewhere. He does have a lot. And we'd like to see something on there, you know, if it could be a little smaller, maybe it can. I understand his point of view of the saleability. I understand that area commands a certain type of structure. We all see the water issue. Rock Creek has always been a major water issue. I don't know. I'm not a specialist or an engineer on how much difference it's going to make if he takes a couple of trees down, but somebody probably does, and we should leave that up to them until we see that plan. I don't know if we can really comment one way or the other, and we're not prepared to do that tonight.
Okay. I'll wait patiently.
I thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. You know, everybody was trying to do the best thing, and I'm going to tell you, these guys have been fairly cooperative. I have to tell you. So let's see how this works out.
Ed or Greg, just for the record's clear, can you put up something that just kind of shows where that gentleman's home is in relation to this home? Just so we have a little bit clearer. And then I think, as you were saying, his
surrounding features
upstream.
Usually a surrounding features exhibit. Sir, are you right where the cursor is right now? 006, is that where you live?
Hold on,
Yes.
I'll get him back in. 1 second, 1 second.
That's where he lives, Tony, yes.
All right.
Okay. All right. Wasn't sure if it was that home or not. Gotcha.
It is, yep.
And we didn't show the home on this particular exhibit, but it's
Yes.
where the cursor is now.
I don't see a lot of trees on your side as it is right now, maybe because it's just blurry, but I'm trying to see where all these trees he's talking about. Can you make that bigger, that picture?
Greg, why don't you go to can you go to the earlier exhibit where you had it broken out? One of the earlier exhibits had the tree disturbance plan.
I think that photo is also with the leaves off the trees.
That's correct.
Yeah, that wasn't that one. There was another one that you had a bunch of trees shown, different groupings of trees.
I thought this was it, but let me take a look to the previous.
Yeah, there was one. I thought there was an earlier exhibit. Yes, that one.
Now, see, that's where other more protective resources pop through, and once you have trees in the you have sensitive woodlands basically that are within sloped areas or within a floodplain. So
okay, I'm sorry then.
yeah,
okay.
Well, I think the surrounding features are, even though the trees, the foliage is off the trees, it does give a good characterization of the cover.
I would like this project to work, but I need it to work for everybody, and that's what we need to do, or else it's not going to be right. I think we can do it, but I wonder what the procedure is from here. How do we go about from this point?
Well, Mr. Zamparelli, if I may,
Yes.
I have no authority from the township to compromise on any aspect of this project. I've been told to appear in opposition. So at this point, it's going to be the board to make a decision as to how they want to proceed. And then the parties, depending on the decision, will have to decide whether they're going to appeal or not. But you keep saying about compromising. I have no authority to compromise the township's position in opposition to this application.
Okay. Thank you, Barb.
Tony, I think we do need to break out for a little bit here to ask our council a couple questions.
I agree.
Do we have any, just wanted to know before we did that, do we have any more public comment?
There's no more public comment.
And
Okay.
I would move my additional exhibits, Adam, A10 through A12, so we have all our exhibits in.
Sure, barring any objection.
No objection.
Right. Okay.
All right, so we'll take a brief executive session, and then I guess
We'll be moved to a waiting room, and then we'll be invited back when you're ready.
Yeah.
We'll do this.
or maybe we will be moved. I'm not exactly sure.
We'll move the board. If everyone could just mute their microphones, we'll move the board into a executive room.
Thanks.
No, I'm always last to these things. I'm last into the room. I'm last out of the room. Feeling you don't like me.
Nobody likes me. It's all right. You get used to it. All right. We're back in. All right. Let's explain. Matt, do you want to bring this up, what we were just talking about?
I think we all have some questions that we'd like to ask first, and then I think give Ed and
why don't you start with the question about the buffer in the back?
All right. So when we look at the rear buffer, you're asking the wetland buffer to be brought down to 10 feet. What is to keep the homeowner out of that 10 feet? Whoever buys this property, because it's not very wide. It is probably one of the narrowest wetland buffers I've seen. I have concerns that, the property owner is going to basically turn that into his backyard. It is his backyard, but he's going to take away any type of buffering capability from that. And I just have concerns that how is that going to be restricted? Can it be restricted?
Greg, can you go to A5 or A6, whichever one shows that buffer that Matt just asked about?
Yeah, so actual buffer from the back wall of the house, not including the little landing, about 24 feet. So what can we do? We can sign it. And then we can fence it, quite honestly, whether it's split rail with a gate or something like that, or even just monument it somehow. So there's some things we can do to call attention to it. Certainly, I think, and maybe Jim can weigh in. I think there is a disclosure ordinance that the township has where they would have to acknowledge, the buyer would have to acknowledge the resources and restrictions on the lot. So maybe it's a combination of all of those
and probably also we could probably consider a conservation easement on the bulk of the lot, probably a lot of it. Once we got done, we could just do a whole easement, conservation easement, a whole thing. That would give rights of enforcement, Matt, to the township or whoever if there would be a violation besides all the other things that Greg just said we could do. So I think there's ways we can manage that. So,
and what's the impact of runoff from the landscaped area getting into the wetland buffer, getting into the wetland?
Well, the change in cover, if in the wetland buffer, that some of that will be preserved in the native vegetation. You'll see our line type on here, LOD. That's what we're anticipating as the limits of disturbance based on site grading. So kind of from the limits of disturbance to the house, that would be turf. Outside of it, though, that could be enhanced in the understory. Right now, there's not a great understory there. So wet tolerant shrubs, riparian corridor plantings could be added back in that area to restore that as much as possible. That sort of balances the runoff from it. But our primary technique is to do underground stormwater management. We would have if we had a basement, this would be a walkout basement. So it would have gravity drainage, and we wouldn't want to rely on sump pumps to drain that out. But on either side of the house, we would run the roof drain collectors into underground seepage beds. They would do several things. They would store the runoff, slowly release it, or in the cases if it's too wet there, we would actually there basically would be underground detention basins. We think we would have to utilize all the parts of the yard to make that work, and with some redundancy and some resiliency, and that included some areas underneath the garage. We don't want to pond water against the house, but I think we can deal with that because there's there's a decent grade on the site. It pitches down pretty well from Sandy Run Road.
So everything's coming from Sandy Run Road down into the wetland area, and you're looking at a walkout basement. What's the grade change over from the front to back? It's like three feet, give or take, maybe 4.
2, 4, 6, maybe 7 feet. So if we
7 feet.
Yeah, these are 2-foot contours.
2-foot contours. Okay. So you're looking to bury. Basically, you're going to bury the basement and have walkout back, and basically maybe 2 steps down on the front.
Yeah, we'd elevate the first floor out up so that the full basement depth is not in backfill. We'd probably look to bury 5 feet of it, then expose the basement floor out the back at grade.
Okay.
Step down, maybe 1 step down.
And do you know what high groundwater is in this area? Have you done that testing yet?
No, we haven't. We would have to, though.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to. I have concerns about the 10-foot wetland buffer. I would like to see something maybe 20 feet, which I know impacts your limit of disturbance, but I think protecting that wetland a bit more than a 10-foot distance is suitable when all of the water from the landscaped area and quite possibly any of the fertilizers are going to end up into the wetland with no type of filtration whatsoever.
Looking at our limits of disturbance, and we do have some opportunities. So we do have some opportunities on the sides of the building. So that limited buffer is really is just beyond this most narrow point between the limited disturbance and this sort of inflection point in the wetland. We do have the opportunity to pitch grades and sculpt this to direct the water into a little bit more of a lateral flow path, so we don't flow directly down into Brock Creek, but we can run alongside it into some natural plantings through that area and maximize the buffer. So the maximize the effect of the buffer, not necessarily the dimension, but the flow length of the buffer. So we can do some things like that.
All right. And then, if you're talking about a walkout back, and you're looking at, for all intents and purposes, it's something like maybe 14 feet from the back line to the limited disturbance.
Correct.
How do you see that area being used?
It's really going to be that would likely be turfed, but we can kick the drainage down kind of to follow the flow path of Brock Creek. But the usable yard areas are going to be more to the sides. So this would probably be turf, and that would transition to buffer planting. Appropriate native riparian buffer planting in these areas. Now, again, since that's outside of our limits of disturbance, we don't anticipate taking anything down to replant it. We'd have to find a sort of a balance point, though, to see that we may have some gaps in the understory that we could plant. Now, that would actually get outside of our limited disturbance, but we're really just talking, planting shrubs and those kind of things to reestablish an understory. And I think it's appropriate.
All right. Can you speak to? I'm going to jump over to the driveway location. You have 188.77 feet from the center line of Edgewood Road to the looks to be the near edge of your driveway.
That's actually I was going to the center line of the driveway.
Center line of the driveway. Okay. Where'd you come up with that? Is that just an arbitrary number? And following on that, what is PennDOT's site triangle requirement for a driveway in this position?
I don't know exactly what the site triangle is at the intersection. It's probably nowhere near 188 feet. it's not arbitrary. There is a front yard setback of 80 feet that's required off of Edgewood Road. So you see this dimension here. We set the house, the edge of the house, right on that front yard setback. And given the dimensions of the house, we sort of have resulted in that dimension here. So it is largely driven by the front yard setback on Edgewood, but with the side entry driveway, it gives us a little more separation. Usually I think in the subdivision ordinance, I would have to check, but intersection to driveway separations are, on the magnitude of 40, 50, 60 feet.
All right, and you don't have any concerns about the turn in the road just past the driveway and having proper sight distance on the other, that side?
Yeah, we're actually on the outside of a curve here, so we have pretty good sight distance going this way. Obviously, on the inside, it's a little gets a little bit of a pinch point looking over, over your shoulder. I think it's kind of optimal being out on the outside part of the curve, seeing left and right, and with the intersection here and traffic stopped. Obviously, have not seen the roundabout. Don't know how that will function in this whole.
We haven't either, so don't worry about it.
How come you can't make the house a little wider and less deep?
Yeah.
And I see the 80-foot setback on the front yard. You can't encroach into that and make it that way. You get a little bit more room in the back. I mean, you got 45 feet now. Was that your house depth? 45 feet.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, 40 it was 40, and you went out the other way.
Yeah, we.
What's the
40 to 45? We're trying to provide some flexibility here for the product style, but fundamentally, the 40 and a 40 is the minimum, we think, and based on what John's been telling us, John Mano, 40 is the absolute minimum. We probably would not change the design of the house at all to like a longer or narrower ranch style, because we start to run into setback issues off of steep slopes in this area here too. So
over there, but what about on the other side?
This side?
Yes. Can you?
It's kind of pick your pick your variance. We're compliant there. We're trying to stay off of Edgewood to the maximum amount possible.
I see, but if you came off the back a little bit, that makes that a little bit nicer for the backyard instead of the 10 feet you got there. Is that what you have, 10 feet?
Well, we have 24 and a half feet to the wetland, but about 10 foot of it would be effective buffer.
Yeah. What's this line based off of? Is that wetland?
That's just a limited disturbance that we're kind of looking at. Why don't you do the grading coming off of the driveway? We know there's going to be, if this is a walkout basement here, we know there's going to be a transition grade that has to go down. So we know we'll have some disturbance there.
Okay, so it's based on grading. It's not based on a setback criteria.
Correct.
Okay, and then the front yard, the 25 feet. That's primarily driven by what?
Trying to pull that whole house and maximize or balance, I guess is the word, the wetland buffer. So that's one of the variances we're seeking. We wouldn't want to go much closer than 25 feet because it starts to compromise your ability to get your car oriented here to pull out straight. But the normal setback is
30, right?
30 feet. So we're looking for a 5 foot
right
there.
Right.
And the only impact to that is basically you have a smaller front yard, and it still allows you to get the car turned and proper movement.
Correct.
Yes.
And you have a stormwater seepage bed in the front yard that appears to be fairly close to the right of way, but it's also on the high side of the property.
Yeah, and this is just a sort of a typical there. It isn't designed. We need to do test fits out there to do it. Realistically, we think we're going to have several. We'll probably have 3 of them surrounding the house.
And is it fair to say you're basically looking at capturing roof runoff, so it'd be clean and you can dump it right into the seepage bed?
Yeah, we would put a disconnect between the roof drains and the seepage beds so that if we do get an extraordinary rain, we don't surcharge water on the roof. But yeah, other than some grit, and we can put a trap in the connection to make sure whatever gets in those beds is clean.
All right. Okay, I think I'm okay with the front yard. It's the backyard that I really have concerns with. So
the back, that can't be 29.51. You said you got.
Yeah, I mean, if we go down to the minimum amount of a 40
Right.
foot, that puts you up 5 feet.
That works within your parameter. What does everybody think about that?
A 40 by 52 foot footprint is what you're suggesting, Tony?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Understood.
That's what I am. Yeah. What do you think, Matt, on that?
I like I would prefer the 30-foot backyard so we can protect the wetlands. To be honest, I'd prefer a 20-foot buffer
On the other one, instead of the 10.
for the wetland buffer instead of the 10. I like the idea of putting a fence in there to make sure that it's not going to get impacted.
Sound unreasonable.
I don't think any of that sounds unreasonable. And I think, your 30-foot, 29 and a half, whatever you want to call it.
5 feet.
It works within their parameter.
Right.
They'd have to play with the footprint a little bit. I'd be more comfortable with that than I am with what I'm seeing right now.
I would too.
Agreed. So it looks like we're at the point of making a motion
I
then.
think we are. I don't hear any. I think that's a good motion. Peter, Matt?
I don't have the number.
Oh.
It is 20185 with reference to appeal 20187.
I propose we approve appeal 201857, subject to a 20-foot wetland buffer, a 29.5-foot rear setback from the wetland buffer, a 25-foot front yard setback, I think that was the variances, correct, Adam?
Yeah, and then there's
And then we have
the 0 foot rear yard setback.
We saying that 29
we're
and a
saying
half
that's
feet. 29.
We're saying that 29 and a half feet, right?
Gotcha.
That there'll be some fence or other marking system, the agreement of the township on the wetland buffer line. Offset line, the setback.
Offset line, correct. Okay. Is there any other language in there, Adam, that we need to add?
So 25.
I don't think that you need to add it. It's whether you want to add.
So I understand that, Adam.
We like that. 25-foot front, 29.51 rear, 20 foot on the wetlands buffer. And a fence.
It's a 20-foot offset line of wetlands buffer, signage, or a split rail fence to indicate the boundary.
Yeah. How about and? I like signage and a split rail fence.
Like and.
Sure.
So let me make sure I'm clear.
Yeah.
The net impact of what you just said results in a 40-foot by 52-foot footprint, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
40 feet in depth, 52 feet in length.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, everything else essentially granted with the addition of, or the 5 foot plus the fence.
The conservation easement, would that be applicable here, or is that a separate issue?
No, you can have that as a condition.
You could. and I'm okay with that.
We
All
should.
right.
We have to.
So,
yeah.
yeah, so
I think it's
conservation
appropriate
easement,
for everybody, so.
yeah. So conservation easement shall be, who's that get dedicated to? Is there a entity in the town, or is that?
Typically, it would be the town. The town would have the right of enforcement of it. There would have to be a legal description and a plan prepared that would highlight the areas that we were going to conserve outside of the limit of disturbance.
Also,
The township would get the hammer to enforce that.
All right.
Okay. With
You got all
conservation
that?
easement.
Adam, did you get all that?
Yeah, I did. Little convoluted, but I think we got through it. So basically, just to recap and make a little bit clear, the front yard setback would be as requested.
25.
The rear yard setback would be 29.5 feet,
Correct.
and the wetland buffer would be 20 feet
Correct.
instead of the requested 10. There would be a fence, signage and fence, and a conservation easement for the wetland areas to be dedicated to the township. I think,
And the fence should go on the buffer line.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right, I think that's clear.
All right. Motion's been made.
second. No debate. Sorry.
Well, wait. It's all
Oh, no,
right.
so you have to second it first. And then
You
we can-
seconded it.
I second.
Is there any discussion? I think we've already discussed it to death, but is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion's granted. Variance is granted.
Thanks for your patience and consideration, guys.
What we tried to do.
This one's
Wasn't
different.
easy.
This one's different. You're right.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Barb.
Bye,
Good
guys.
night. Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Good night.
John, good night.
Thanks.
Night.
Um, It is October 27th. There are 3 locations you can go to in Bucks County to actually hand in your ballots, your mail-in ballots. One in Levittown,
Yeah.
New Falls, Board of Elections, and in Quakertown, there's a location as well. And you can also, at those locations, request your mail-in ballot, fill it out, and submit it right then and there. And
Anything else?
Tony, you won't be here for that meeting?
I might. The guy, I'm supposed to start up that day, but he may not be finished. I can't say for sure. I think I'll make it.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So other than that, just have to motion to adjourn and we're good to go.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
So moved. Good. Everybody's in favor. Good night. All right.
Good night.
Thank
All
you,
right, have a
guys.
good night, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.